Hello, my name is Robert Kirkpatrick. I'm sorry I can't join you today in Santiago. I direct the Global Pulse Initiative in the Secretary General's Office of the United Nations. Global Pulse is a special initiative of the United Nations focused on harnessing big data and artificial intelligence for sustainable development, humanitarian action, and peace. We operate a network of data science and artificial intelligence labs around the world. We partner with companies to get access to anonymized big data that we can use for public good. We do experimental research projects discovering new approaches to insights from the data. We develop software platforms that can be used by national governments and UN agencies in their work. And we're increasingly focused on development of guidelines and principles and policies, both from within the UN, but also for public use, to make sure that the innovation that's happening in the world of data and algorithms is done in a safe and responsible way. So, what I wanted to talk to you today about is a problem that we see emerging in the wake of the regulatory reforms that we're seeing around privacy in the world. And I refer here, of course, to the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe and other parts of the world, where increasing public concern about privacy and awareness of the need for strengthened data protection is really driving a wave of reforms that are trying to put control of data back into the hands of ordinary people. We certainly welcome these reforms. However, we see another problem emerging. If you look at the Hippocratic Oath that every physician takes, yes, that means first do no harm, do not hurt your patient. But first do no harm also means take every reasonable step to prevent preventable harms from happening to your patient. And that's the challenge here. Let me give you a brief story to illustrate. A few years ago, I was running a breakout session at a conference of the World Economic Forum for a group of 15 chief executive officers of large companies. And I'd given them a scenario where we said there's been an industrial accident and toxic smoke is headed for suburban neighborhoods. Which of your companies has data that could help firemen save lives? And this gentleman raised his hand, and I said, well, who are you? And he said, well, I run a large insurance company in the United States, and we know where all the people with asthma and respiratory diseases are. We know where all the people with wheelchairs are. We know where all the elderly and all the children are. So maybe the firemen could know to go to those houses first. And then someone said, well, wait, what about privacy? He said, okay, well, imagine that we have a mobile app that simply has a map on it that shows some houses red and some orange and some yellow. And the firemen would simply need to know to go to the red houses first and the orange second. They wouldn't need to know what your personal information was or your health condition. And then someone, the conversation got sort of very quiet, and then someone said, wait, the firemen don't know that already? You mean they're just going house to house and neighborhood by neighborhood? That's not okay. And then they got angry. And it was really interesting because once you understand that you don't have to sacrifice privacy in order to serve the public good, not using the data becomes as much of an ethical problem as misusing the data. So yes, privacy is a human right, but so are food, water, shelter, education, access to justice, access to healthcare, right? Yes, we need our regulations to prevent misuse, but we also need our regulations to prevent what we call misuse. That is the chance of not using the data and not innovating with the data for the public good. The problem we see is that the privacy regulations and data protection regulations out there today are increasingly monolithically focused on privacy protection, and in their effort to misuse are actually inadvertently perpetuating misuse, non-use of the data. Today what we see is, yes, companies are increasingly interested in data philanthropy and in putting their data to work for the SDGs in a safe and responsible way. The mobile industry is in the lead here. Regulators and policymakers see the opportunity to transform public services and to make sure that the regulations keep up. We talk to the regulators, but is there political will, right? At what point do we actually see change? We haven't seen the awareness on the part of regulators and public sector leaders translated into more space for the kind of rapid innovation we need for the SDGs. Without data protection, we cannot achieve the SDGs. Without data innovation, we cannot achieve the SDGs. We need real-time and predictive insights to really take us into that quantum leap that transforms society and transforms the cities we live in so that we can achieve these goals and leave no one behind. So in a sense, the lack of innovation here perpetuated by inertia in regulations around innovation, has resulted in a failure to protect the public from what turn out to be preventable harms. I think we need to reframe how we think about risk in a world of data and algorithms in a way that's much more holistic, that balances the risks of misuse against the risks of not using the data at all. What would it take for our firefighters to have the best information they need to save lives? Do we have to sacrifice privacy in the process? I don't think so. Not at a level that people would find unacceptable. Perhaps we should be asking, well, what's the re-identification risk? What's the risk to privacy in a proposed use of data for the public good? And maybe we say, well, maybe the next question is, what's the mortality rate of the disease we're trying to stop? Right? It can't be all or nothing. It can't be a legitimate purpose, or no one can come within a 10-kilometer radius of the data. We need to engage the public and have an open and transparent conversation about where we as a society, as countries, as communities want to draw the line and strike that balance between what we see as the risk of misuse and the risk of not using the data. Ultimately, I think we're not going to see the political will in place until the average person on the street understands that for all the years when this data has been collected, often without their knowledge or control, and used for government surveillance and used for corporate profiteering, it also wasn't being used for more than a decade now to transform public services, early warning systems, disaster response, official statistics, and accountability. Getting to a future where data is used efficiently and effectively for the public good is going to require a concerted effort, and a lot of things have to change. Many of these are common problems related to the dissemination of technology into developing countries in general, and we understand this. But as privacy regulations continue to strengthen and put safeguards in place against misuse, we also need widespread public support for regulatory reforms to address the risks of not using the data at all. The stakes are simply too high not to do so. Thanks very much, and I wish you a great conference.